everybody doing today? Let's give Dr. Bo another hand, him in that shirt. But as Dr. Bo stated though previously, I mean, 5 degrees, 10 years, Nkrumah, he's just very inspirational, very influential. Like being around him, he would rub off on you. And that was the importance and basically the main synopsis of my paper of how Nkrumah rubbed off on Martin Luther King and his civil rights movement as he came back to America. Martin Luther King, as you guys know, was one of the most influential people in the civil rights movement for blacks in America. He opened up many doors for many people today. We all know that. Some people found him inspirational, some people found him controversial, but regardless, he had black rights at the top of his priority list. But one of the things that people really don't know was what really influential was his trip to Ghana in March of 1957 for the independence of Ghana. Him and his wife, Coretta, they were personally invited by then Prime Minister Nkrumah in 1957. Special guests included A. Philip Randolph, Modisia Johnson, and at the time Vice President Richard Nixon also attended the independence celebration. Just a little background. I know Dr. Bo gave a great background about Nkrumah, but he was the first more African citizen to be elected elected to government, and later became president. He attended Lincoln University in Pennsylvania for advanced studies. After a 12-year stint in America, he returned back to Ghana in 1947 to pursue a political career. He saw his country not in a way he wanted it, so he wanted to go back and change that after his stint in America. In 1949, the United Gold Coast Convention Party split. They formed a new party called the Convention People's Party. Kumar was he was a very pushy political figure. He ruffled a lot of feathers. Ruffled so many feathers, in 1950 he was actually jailed for his actions, I'll say. But while he was in jail though, he still had the connections outside the jail to have a strong campaign, and after he was freed in 1951, he was elected president to form this government and to help Ghana out. So as he in 1957, when they were eventually going to become a independence from Britain, excuse me, he wanted to invite Dr. Martin Luther King and his wife over to enjoy the celebration. So he invited him and his wife Coretta over. They come over on the plane and they get to this hotel. Now, Dr. Martin Luther King and his wife Coretta, they hear the African stereotypes. They thought that when they were to get there, they thought it was going to be potentially dirty, cobblestones, but it wasn't like that. They get to this beautiful hotel, very luxury. The African people treated them like celebrities. One of the quotes from this book I read was, Coretta said, "I had no idea that it was going to be this beautiful when I got here." When they got to Africa, they began to rub ideas off each other, talk about what they're going to in their personal struggles. Kumar talked about what he had to go to finally get Ghana to this point. Dr. Martin Luther King explained to him what he's going through in America, what is his ups, his downs. They began to discuss colonization versus racist segregation and realized that they're both the same thing. They're both two aspects of trying to keep a group of people down. They also discussed the economic underdevelopment of Africa. Kumar wanted to let Dr. Martin Luther King know about the problems that was going on in Africa. So because if he can get America on board to help Africa and they can work with one another, it would all be fine. We needed to realize that even though we are in two separate continents, we are the same group of people. That was the overall goal, was to combine forces. That's what they wanted to do. The trip was very emotional for Dr. Martin Luther King and his wife. This really inspired him. One of the quotes from the book I read was him and his wife actually cried when the British flag came down and the new Ghana flag was raised. It was just a symbol of freedom, and just of hard work over this so much time has finally just been accomplished. As him and his wife finally went back to Montgomery, King changed. He had a new fire in him. a fire that was never lit before. Before Dr. Martin Luther King went to Ghana, he was very passive. He grew up in a Christian background. His father was a pastor, so he wasn't as aggressive politically as you need to be sometimes to get your point across. But from talking with Nkrumah and seeing the progress that's made in Ghana, Dr. Martin Luther King finally felt, okay, if this guy can go to jail, he can risk his life, and they can accomplish and get under the British thumb, Martin Luther King, it was like a symbol of, we can do this in America. It was an example of it could really happen. When Martin Luther King came back to America, he began to meet with different figures. One of the figures he met with was an historian, C.L.R. James from London. They just discussed the Ghana movement and how it related to the rest of America. Going to Ghana also, it helped Martin Luther King come back and focus on targets that were hurting blacks in America. He wanted to focus on the economy now, the financial affairs of blacks, how pretty much America was keeping blacks down financially. They weren't giving them the opportunity to grow, and that's why blacks could never come up. So he wanted to really focus on the economy. He wanted to focus on blacks' financial affairs. He called it, one of his quotes was, employers were committing murder in the first degree because they were not allowing blacks to rise. It wasn't fair. They weren't giving them a fair starting point. He wanted to break through these color barriers. The Ghana effect on Martin Luther King was just so astronomical. I mean, without him making that trip and seeing just the celebration, the happiness, I mean, just to see the hard work just pay off from just suffering, I just don't think that he wouldn't have never had that competitive fire if he had not gone to Ghana, if he had not engaged with Kumar. I mean, as Dr. Vo, all the accomplishments he's had, I mean, it's hard not to be around a person like that and not be affected. Sometimes you need to get around people that have been through the fire to get your fire going. And that's exactly what the effect that Kumar had on Martin Luther King. To this day, Ghana still actually hosts a celebration for Martin Luther King because of his role there in visiting and stuff. It still goes on today. So there will always be a special connection between Ghana and Martin Luther King. Thank you.